Hi, if you're a manager or a business owner or marketer, so one of the key things which every day you will come across situation is to influence, persuade or convince others. Now this can be in terms of hiring a right talent or trying to retain a talent who is leaving, or maybe like negotiate something with your clients or motivate your team, get some new ideas implemented or talk to investors, management. So all these activities essentially involve some sort of convincing, getting some agreements, influencing and persuasion and all. Now that's where persuasion is such a very important activity, and some studies even suggest that more than 40% of time is spent by managers and above on this one activity. But now in this video I want to show you exactly like what happens when you are trying to persuade someone. What are the patterns which can happen? So what we say is there are 4 patterns of influence exist, and these are where understanding, and also I will explain you in the end how you can increase your own persuasion effect and what is that you must do. So let's dive in now. So this is what I call persuasion effect, 4 patterns of influence. So let's first understand a persuasion setup. So what is the persuasion setup? You are an influencer, you have certain ideas, maybe like you want to retain somebody who is planning to leave, but then the receiver is in certain position. So this is what we call a gap. And then there is a time, right? Every persuasion there is a time. Maybe it can be a short one meeting, or maybe you are trying to do it over a month, depending on kind of persuasion engagement you are involved. Like a complex deal can take months of effort, time. But overall, the goal is to reduce the gap and get to your position. So the first effect, if you really see, the best effect which we call persuasion effect, as the time goes, the receiver position comes down to your position. That means the gap gets closed, but you have been there at the same place, but the receiver has agreed to you. So this is the best persuasion. The influencer successfully persuades the receiver to move to his or her positions. So this is our number one position where we like to have it, but then the life has its own way. Not every receiver is willing to give everything as position, but still there is something he is willing. This is called a negotiation. So where you are willing to give up some of your position and the receiver is also willing to give up his position, but as the time goes both of you agree. So this is what we call a negotiation. So both parties take steps to close the gap between them, and a great persuader is one who knows how to prepare well for even a negotiation, right? You don't want to really stick on your own position sometimes, but this is the second negotiation effect. But then there is a third one which is very commonly happens, is what we call fixation effect, or a kind of status quo where you get stuck with your influence position and the receiver kind of stays at the same. So the gap remains the same even after multiple attempts to persuade, multiple meetings happens, so this is kind of quite frustrating, but this is quite common. Like both parties take fixed positions and conduct a meeting that kind of reinforces their original difference. So kind of commonly said, right? Agree to disagree, right? You continue to disagree, you continue to remain, and not a really good, I would say, good time spent on this kind of, if these things happen. But there is even one more effect which is there, which is kind of pretty worse situation, where polarization effect. So what is going to happen in this is that the gap which existed actually widens as you continue to engage. The more the two parties talk, the further apart they move. Now obviously we have seen this happening, right, in most of the news channels. This is what kind of happens. Two people come, but end of the meeting they are completely away from where they were, and we don't want this to happen really in businesses and work. So in the end there are 4 positions, as we said: polarization effect, fixation, negotiation and persuasion. But now if you are a leader, if you are a manager, what should be your goal? Your goal should be something where you want to eliminate this polarization as much as possible in your conversations. So you don't want to engage in any persuasion activity where this is going to happen. So because otherwise the whole time is wasted, and time is the most precious resource. Now the second thing is fixation. Again, this is something where you got to reduce as much as possible. Sometimes it's difficult to eliminate this. People have very strong positions, and you may want to just leave it at that. But then the third one is where negotiation. Yes, this is something where you must be ready for sometimes where you can negotiate and at least come to a deal. This is what happens mostly in sales situations, where people have certain offers and you start off with a very high position, but you are willing to negotiate. This is good. But then the best leaders, the top persuaders or master persuaders, are where they get to maximize this part, which is out of 10 persuasion attempts, maybe 8 or even 9, they get to this where they make other person say yes to their position. Again, this is all doing with ethically, not using a manipulation, not using a force, but the great leaders know how to persuade and maximize yes. Now you may be wondering, is this something can be done in your own business? Can this be learned? So that's where I am doing a webinar training where I am going to show you exactly how some of the persuasion skills, the science of persuasion using Dr. Cialdini's 7 principles can be applied and improve your own persuasion power. Okay, this is called small big, how to use mental shortcuts to motivate others say yes. So this training I am doing on tomorrow, that is Friday 12 Jan at 4:30 p.m. So win with small changes that deliver big results. So you are going to discover 4 impactful case studies using Dr. Cialdini's proven principles of persuasion to secure yes response effortlessly in business scenarios. So that's the key thing. So once you understand persuasion is a science and there are certain principles, you can actually maximize from polarization or fixation and even negotiation cases to actually persuasion effect. And what we are going to cover in this training is 4 things we'll cover, which is understand why influence essential is so important skill, because a lot of time, 40% of our time is spent on this. But also decision making, you will learn exactly how we decide, what is that kind of decision making we do, and how 90% of our decisions are made using shortcuts versus logical thinking, and how the Cialdini's ethical persuasion, 7 principles of persuasion which you can apply and start getting more yes responses. And finally, there are 4 case studies I am going to cover where I will share you the exact how it can be done, which you can start implementing immediately. You can put into practice immediately after the webinar itself. So these cases are very powerful cases, and I'm sure that end of webinar it will be a transformative experience. So once again, my name is Prashantji. I am a partner at Growth Aspire and also Cialdini Institute certified in ethical influence. I invite you to register yourself for this webinar, and it's happening on 12th January at 4:30 p.m. and click the link below to register. I'll see you.